When ruthless space pirates target what they believe is a defenseless human medical vessel, they discover too late that the ship's crew of healthcare professionals have turned their medical expertise into a terrifying arsenal of defensive capabilities. The incident becomes legendary across the galaxy as the day that changed how aliens viewed human medical practitioners. The UNMS Mercy drifted through the star-speckled void, its pristine white hull adorned with the universal medical symbol, a double helix wrapped around a spiral galaxy. To most species, it represented hope and healing, but after today, it would become a symbol of something else entirely, a warning about underestimating human healthcare professionals. Chief Medical Officer Zephyr Stormwind was in the middle of updating the ship's surgical protocols when the first anomalous reading appeared on her screens. Her cybernetically enhanced eyes flickered as they processed the data, their iridescent purple irises narrowing slightly. At 43, Zephyr had the kind of face that made patients instinctively trust her, right until they noticed the calculating intelligence behind her warm smile. "Echo, run a diagnostic on that energy signature," she called out to the ship's AI. The artificial intelligence, designated Enhanced Care and Healing Operations, or ECHO, had been programmed with every medical text in human history, plus what the crew affectionately called her creative interpretations. "Analysis complete, Chief Medical Officer," Echo responded, her holographic form materializing beside Zephyr's desk. "The energy pattern matches known signatures of cloaked vessels. Shall I alert Lieutenant Quantum?" Zephyr took a sip from her steaming mug of strictly regulated stimulant brew, a concoction that made traditional coffee look like warm milk. "Not yet. Let's see what our visitors have planned." In the ship's engineering section, Chief Engineer Arcturus Void was teaching her latest batch of medical drones, what she called aggressive patient care protocols. The dark-skinned woman's long silver-white hair was tied back in intricate braids, each one containing hidden tech that let her interface directly with the ship's systems. Her latest modification to the medical drones had given them the ability to distinguish between patients and involuntary patients, a distinction she found endlessly amusing. Up on the bridge, Navigation Officer Lyra Quantum was plotting their course through contested space while arguing with Echo about the merits of what she called therapeutic maneuvers. The former star racer had joined the medical service after a crash that should have killed her. The same accident had left her with synthetic legs that she swore worked better than the originals, especially for her unique style of piloting. "All I'm saying," Lyra insisted, her gold-flecked black eyes gleaming with mischief, "is that if we can't stabilize a patient during a triple barrel roll, we're not trying hard enough." Rounding out the senior staff was Dr. Horizon Eclipse, the ship's xenobiologist and resident expert in what he called creative pharmacology. His metallic blue skin, a result of an accident involving experimental medical nanites, seemed to shimmer under the medical bay's lights as he organized his collection of specially modified tranquilizers. None of them knew it yet, but their unique approach to medical care was about to be put to the test in ways that would redefine the meaning of first do no harm across the galaxy. "Dr. Stormwind," Echo's voice carried a hint of what might have been anticipation. "Our visitors are making their approach. Based on their trajectory and energy emissions, I calculate a 98.7% probability that they are the notorious Crimson Side pirates." Zephyr's smile took on a predatory edge. "Well then, Echo, I believe it's time to prepare for some unexpected admissions. Alert the crew. We're about to give a masterclass in human emergency medicine." The sleek warship Crimson Side hung motionless against the backdrop of distant stars, its blood-red hull designed to strike fear into the hearts of merchant vessels. In the ship's command center, Captain Nexus Vex studied the holographic display with growing interest, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns that indicated intense satisfaction. The target floating serenely before them seemed almost too perfect. The UNMS Mercy, its pristine white hull unmarred by weapon ports or defensive arrays. Vex's crystalline fingers traced the vessel's outline in the hologram, creating small rainbow refractions where they intersected the light. "A hospital ship," he purred, his voice carrying the distinctive chime of his silicon-based species. "Minimal defenses, valuable cargo, and best of all, human-operated. First Officer Kaarthak shifted uncomfortably, her insectoid mandibles clicking in a pattern that transmitted anxiety to any who knew her species' subtle language. Captain, with utmost respect, medical vessels are protected. There are conventions. Conventions. Vex chimed dismissively, his crystalline structure vibrating with amusement, are for those who lack imagination. Besides, look at their classification. Humans are barely a Class II civilization. Lieutenant Zyx, their tactical officer, cleared all three of their throats simultaneously. Unlike their captain, Zyx had actually studied human history before choosing a more lucrative career in piracy. Sir, perhaps we should consider the profit, Vex interrupted, his body gleaming with avarice. Medical supplies, advanced genetic research, emergency rations. Do you know what these fetch on the black market? Especially from a human vessel. Their physiology makes their medicines particularly potent. The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances. Stories about humans circulated widely in pirate havens. Tales of their death world origins, their inexplicable durability, their disturbing ability to continue fighting long after most species would have succumbed to their injuries. I heard, whispered a junior officer, their bioluminescent spots pulsing nervously, that humans in medical professions are especially dangerous. Something about knowing exactly how bodies work. Vex's crystalline form vibrated in what his crew recognized as laughter. They're healers. They've sworn oaths to do no harm. What could be safer? He turned to his tactical display, missing the way Zyx's three eyes rolled in perfect synchronization. Sir, Kaarthak tried one final time, her antennae twitching. My clutchmate served on a rescue vessel. She told me she once saw a human medical team lift a crashed shuttle just to reach an injured patient. Exaggerations, Vex chimed dismissively. Next you'll be telling me they can survive ingesting poison for pleasure. He gestured at the tactical display. Look at their power readings minimal. Their shield coverage pathetic. This is exactly the kind of target we excel at hitting. The captain's crystalline fingers danced across the control surface, plotting intercept courses. We'll disable their engines with the first volley, board through their medical storage sections, and be gone before anyone realizes what happened. Clean, professional, profitable. As the Crimson side began its approach, its crew remained blissfully unaware that they were about to become the subject of what would later be known throughout the galaxy as the Mercy Incident. A cautionary tale about why the galactic classification system desperately needed to add a footnote about humans in medical professions, and why first, do no harm, had a lot more wiggle room than most species realized. The first warning shot from the Crimson side streaked past the UNMS Mercy's bow, a traditional pirate intimidation tactic that was about to backfire spectacularly. In the ship's medical bay, Chief Medical Officer Zephyr Stormwind watched the weapons fire with professional interest, her cybernetic eyes calculating trajectory and yield with practiced ease. Echo, she called out while calmly sipping her enhanced stimulant brew, Initiate Protocol Code White. And please inform our uninvited guests about our current admission policies. The AI's voice echoed through every compartment of the Mercy, its usual soothing tones carrying an undercurrent of anticipation. Attention unauthorized vessels. You are attempting to board a Class 3 medical facility. Please be advised that forced entry will be considered consent for emergency medical intervention. Current waiting time for hostile boarders is approximately 2 minutes. We thank you for choosing UNMS Mercy for your sudden onset of extremely poor life choices. In engineering, Chief Engineer Arcturus Void's silver-white braids writhed like living things as she interfaced directly with her modified medical drones. Time to show them our new patient acquisition protocols. She grinned, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. Echo, darling, deploy the welcoming committee. The first boarding party breached the Mercy's hull exactly where their scans had indicated a medical storage facility. They emerged into what appeared to be a standard triage area, complete with cheerful signs reading, Rate your pain level on a scale of 1 to 10 and today's special. complementary sedation with every invasion attempt. The pirates' leader, a hulking Vraxian named Korg, had just enough time to realize something was very wrong before the room's lighting shifted to a soft purple hue. Warning, Echo's voice announced pleasantly, initiating automated patient intake procedures. Please remain still for preliminary diagnosis. From recessed panels in the walls emerged what appeared to be standard medical drones. However, these units have been extensively modified by Arcturus's creative engineering. Their usual scanning beams had been repurposed into targeting systems, and their sample collection appendages now deployed remarkably effective capture nets. "What is this?" Korg demanded, raising his plasma rifle. He never got to fire it. A drone zipped past him, its diagnostic beam cataloging his species' vital points with terrifying precision before deploying what Arcturus called her Rapid Patient Compliance System, a modified nerve stimulator that left a massive alien twitching on the floor, thoroughly conscious but completely uncoordinated. Dr. Horizon Eclipse's voice came through the room's speakers, his tone professionally cheerful. "Congratulations! You've been selected for our new experimental treatment program. Please note that side effects may include temporary paralysis, acute regret, and a compelling desire to reconsider your life choices." In the corridor outside, another group of pirates encountered Navigation Officer Lyra Quantum. The former Star Racer had reprogrammed the ship's gravity plating in ways that probably violated several laws of physics. "You know what they say," she called out as she adjusted the controls. "Physical therapy can be quite challenging." The pirates found themselves suddenly weighing 5 times their normal mass, then practically floating, then spinning in controlled arcs that Lyra insisted were therapeutic maneuvers designed to reset the inner ear. The fact that these maneuvers left them too dizzy to aim their weapons was, she assured them, purely coincidental. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer Stormwind made her way to the breach point, pausing only to activate what she called her aggressive patient care kit. Her cybernetic eyes shifted through spectrum after spectrum, identifying each invader's species-specific vulnerabilities with medical precision. "The interesting thing about being a doctor," she announced to the remaining upright pirates, her enhanced eyes glowing softly, "is that knowing how to put someone back together means you know exactly how they come apart. Now, who'd like to volunteer for our advanced anatomy lesson?" The pirates, watching their fellows succumb one by one to what the Mercy's crew called preventative medical procedures, began to realize several things simultaneously. First, that human medical professionals had an alarming knowledge of cross-species physiology. Second, that this knowledge could be applied with terrifying precision to induce a variety of interesting and uncomfortable conditions. And third, that do no harm apparently had a much broader interpretation than they'd initially assumed. As Echo deployed another wave of Arcturus's modified drones, her voice carried through the corridors with almost maternal concern. "Please note that attempting to flee medical care will result in mandatory psychiatric evaluation. We also offer group therapy for recovering pirates. Today's session begins in approximately 30 seconds. The UNMS Mercy had transformed into what Chief Medical Officer Stormwind proudly called a fully immersive healthcare environment. Throughout the ship, her crew was demonstrating exactly why the galaxy's assumptions about human medical professionals needed serious revision. In the pharmaceutical storage bay, Dr. Horizon Eclipse was conducting what he termed involuntary drug trials. His metallic blue skin gleamed as he adjusted the environmental controls, releasing a carefully calibrated mixture of non-lethal but highly effective sedatives into the ventilation system. The fascinating thing about xenobiology, he lectured to a group of increasingly drowsy pirates, is how different species react to various compounds. For instance, that slight tingling in your extremities, that's your peripheral nervous system deciding it needs a vacation. And that sudden urge to contemplate the meaning of life, that's courtesy of my special blend of class, 3 neurotransmitter modulators. Don't worry. The existential crisis is completely temporary. 3 decks above, Chief Engineer Arcturus Void had turned the maintenance drones into what she affectionately called her mobile healthcare providers. Her silver-white braids writhed with cybernetic activity as she directed her mechanical army through the ship's neural network. Patient in Corridor 7 experiencing aggressive tendencies, she announced cheerfully, administering mandatory stress relief. The unfortunate pirate found himself suddenly surrounded by drones that had been modified to dispense not just sedatives, but also what Arcturus called attitude adjustment fields, localized gravity distortions that made any aggressive movement feel like swimming through pudding. Navigation Officer Lyra Quantum had transformed the ship's emergency evacuation systems into what she insisted was a therapeutic transportation network. By selectively activating and deactivating gravity plates in the corridors, she created what amounted to a giant pachinko machine, with pirates as the unwilling players. Think of it as a full-body circulatory system massage, she explained over the ship's comm as another group of invaders slid helplessly through her gravitational maze. With a side order of vestibular recalibration, "Echo, dear, how's their form?" Calculating trajectory and rotation metrics now, the AI responded, "I must say, the screaming does add a certain dramatic flair to the therapeutic process. Shall I start recording vital signs for our paper on gravitational therapy in high-stress situations?" In the medical bay proper, Stormwind had repurposed virtually every piece of equipment into what she called defensive medical applications. Diagnostic scanners became targeting systems, identifying species-specific pressure points with pinpoint accuracy. Bone-knitting regenerators were recalibrated to induce temporary muscular paralysis. Even the humble medical tape found new purpose as a surprisingly effective restraint system. The secret, she explained to a thoroughly immobilized pirate captain, is understanding that medicine is really just applied biology with good intentions. Right now, my intentions are to ensure you receive the most thorough physical examination of your life. Echo, please note in the patient's file, acute case of poor decision-making syndrome, complicated by severe misconceptions about human medical practitioners. The ship's AI had taken to providing running commentary throughout the vessel, her soothing voice somehow making her announcements even more unsettling. Attention all unauthorized visitors. We are currently experiencing high volume in our emergency care department. Current waiting time for treatment of self-inflicted stupidity is approximately 3 minutes. For faster service, please proceed directly to your nearest surrender point. Remember, resistance to treatment will result in mandatory psychiatric evaluation. In the Arboretum, a group of pirates discovered why Dr. Eclipse's experimental medical garden was strictly off-limits to unauthorized personnel. The modified medical plants, sensing intruders, release clouds of spores that induce what the doctor called therapeutic hallucinations. Don't worry. His voice echoed through the chamber as the pirates watched the plants apparently begin to dance. The sensation that you're having a philosophical debate with a particularly insightful fern is completely normal. We find it helps with the rehabilitation process. Throughout the ship, the Mercy's crew coordinated their efforts with the precision of a well-rehearsed trauma team. Arcturus's drones herded pirates into Lyra's gravitational traps, which deposited them neatly into areas where Stormwind's repurposed medical equipment awaited. Dr. Eclipse's various atmospheric cocktails ensured that any resistance was both futile and remarkably relaxed. I must say, Echo commented as she coordinated another group of patients into a makeshift containment area. Their vital signs suggest they're experiencing significant stress reduction, though that might be less about our therapeutic techniques and more about the growing realization that they've made a terrible career choice. The pirates were learning several valuable lessons very quickly. First, that human medical knowledge was terrifyingly versatile. Second, that first, do no harm, left a surprising amount of room for creative interpretation. And third, that perhaps the galaxy's classification system needed an urgent update regarding humans in medical professions, preferably with several warning labels attached. You know what they say about preventative medicine, Chief Medical Officer Stormwind announced during the emergency staff meeting, her cybernetic eyes gleaming with purpose. It's always better than cure. Echo, Initiate Protocol Code Black. Emergency House Call. The UNMS Mercy's crew had secured their own ship, leaving behind corridors full of thoroughly sedated, partially paralyzed, and deeply confused pirates. Now they turned their attention to the Crimson Side, which hung in space like a blood-red reminder of poor life choices. "I've analyzed their ship's design," Engineer Arcturus declared, her silver-white braids riding with transmitted data. "They have exactly 17 potential breach points that would be perfect for what I'm calling our aggressive medical outreach program." Her modified medical drones hovered around her like eager interns, their usually benign medical tools reconfigured for what she termed external patient acquisition. Dr. Horizon Eclipse checked his specialized delivery systems, his metallic blue skin reflecting the emergency lights. "I prepared what I call my comprehensive treatment package: aerosolized muscle relaxants, targeted neurological suppressants, and my personal favorite, a new compound that induces an overwhelming urge to confess one's sins to the nearest authority figure." Navigation Officer Lyra Quantum had already mapped out their approach vector, her synthetic legs twitching with anticipation. "I can get us into position using what I like to call my therapeutic approach maneuvers. Though I should warn you, they violate at least 3 laws of physics and probably a few medical ethics guidelines." "Speaking of medical ethics," Echo chimed in, her holographic form flickering with what might have been amusement, "I've taken the liberty of preparing the necessary paperwork. After all, we're not pirates. We're conducting an unauthorized emergency medical intervention." The Mercy moved with surgical precision, approaching the Crimson Side in what Lyra insisted was a completely necessary spiral pattern. Before the pirate ship could react, Arcturus's drones breached the hull at precisely calculated points, releasing Dr. Eclipse's specialized atmospheric cocktail. Please note, Echo's voice echoed to the pirate ship's communication system, that according to Galactic Medical Regulation 47B, attempting to resist emergency medical care during a crisis can result in mandatory psychiatric evaluation. We strongly recommend relaxing and accepting treatment. The Mercy's crew moved to the Crimson Side like a well-coordinated trauma team. Arcturus's drones preceded them, transforming the pirate vessel's own systems against it. Life support was reprogrammed to dispense mild sedatives. Gravity plating developed mysterious therapeutic malfunctions. Even the lighting shifted to what Dr. Eclipse called psychologically disruptive wavelengths. "You know what the real problem with pirates is?" Stormwind asked conversationally as she led her team through the corridors, her cybernetic eyes scanning for resistance. "Poor preventative care. They never come in for regular checkups." In the Crimson Side's command center, Captain Nexus Vex was experiencing what medical professionals technically termed acute onset reality check. His crystalline form vibrated with panic as reports flooded in from all decks. "What do you mean they're using bone knitters as neural disruptors?" he demanded. "Those are healing devices." "Technically," came the reply, interrupted by what sounded like someone being thoroughly disinfected. "Anything that can restart a nervous system can also temporarily stop one." They're being very creative with their interpretation of medical equipment. The last thing Vex saw before a precisely calibrated dose of Dr. Eclipse's special sedative found him with Stormwind's face, her cybernetic eyes analyzing his crystalline structure with professional interest. "Don't worry," she assured him as his consciousness faded. "We'll have you diagnosed, treated, and rehabilitated in no time. Echo, please start the paperwork for our new involuntary patients. And mark this down as a successful example of preventative medicine. After all, we've definitely prevented any future piracy attempts." "Already done," Echo replied cheerfully. "I've also taken the liberty of preparing their medical bills. I believe the humans have a saying: the bill is worse than the procedure." In the converted cargo bay of the UNMS Mercy, Chief Medical Officer Stormwind conducted what she called her post-treatment consultation with the now thoroughly subdued Captain Nexus Vex. The crystalline pirate's usual sparkle had dimmed considerably, especially after Echo had presented him with the preliminary medical bills. "Let's discuss your treatment options," Stormwind said, her cybernetic eyes scanning the datapad before her. As I see it, you have two choices. Option 1. We hand you over to the galactic authorities, where you'll face charges of attacking a medical vessel. That's about 30 years in a maximum security facility. Option 2. You and your crew enroll in our newly established Rehabilitation through Medical Education program. Vex crystalline structure vibrated weakly. What's the difference? The rehabilitation program includes dental. Dr. Eclipse interjected cheerfully, his metallic blue skin gleaming as he organized various sample containers. Also, you get to help test my new line of personality-adjusting pharmaceuticals. I'm particularly excited about the one that induces overwhelming empathy. The hallucinations are just a bonus. Throughout the medical bay, the rest of the pirate crew was learning several valuable lessons about human medical care. Engineer Arcturus's drones had been reprogrammed for what she called therapeutic surveillance, hovering near each patient with cheerful reminders about the importance of following medical advice. Your current treatment plan, Echo announced over the ship's speakers, includes mandatory counseling sessions, job training, and what we're calling ethical recalibration therapy. Please note that attempting to escape treatment will result in immediate enrollment in Dr. Eclipse's experimental program. Current side effects include spontaneous poetry recitation and an inexplicable desire to take up knitting. Navigation Officer Lyra had already begun converting part of the cargo bay into what she termed a rehabilitation center, complete with motivational posters featuring slogans like "Yesterday's Pirate," "Tomorrow's Paramedic," and "Choose Healthcare, not Ship Theft." Look at it this way. Stormwind told the dejected pirates, you wanted to get into medical supplies. Well, congratulations. You're about to learn everything there is to know about them. From the patient's perspective, the pirates, faced with the choice between prison and what amounted to involuntary medical training, made the only sensible decision. As Echo processed their enrollment forms, she added a personal note to the ship's log. Day 127. Successfully converted hostile boarding action into impromptu medical recruitment drive. Recommend updating Galactic Medical Code to include protocol for rehabilitative sentencing through medical education. The incident aboard the UNMS Mercy sparked considerable debate within the Galactic Medical Council's annual conference. The council chambers buzzed with discussion as representatives reviewed the ship's incident report, which ran to several hundred pages and included such memorable phrases as therapeutic application of medical equipment in unconventional scenarios and aggressive preventative care initiatives. The human delegation's presentation, delivered by Chief Medical Officer Stormwind herself, led to several important changes in galactic medical protocols. First, the classification of human medical ships was revised to include a new warning label. Caution. Medical professionals on board are extensively trained in emergency response procedures and will absolutely use them. Insurance strongly recommended. Dr. Eclipse's rehabilitation program proved surprisingly successful. Within a year, 30% of the former Crimson Side crew had qualified as emergency medical technicians. As one reformed pirate explained, we already had extensive practical experience with human medical procedures, even if it was from the wrong end of the hypo spray. The remaining crew members found legitimate employment in various healthcare-adjacent fields, though everyone agreed it was best not to let them near the pharmaceutical supplies unsupervised. Engineer Arcturus's defensive medical drone protocols were officially disapproved of and unofficially distributed to every human medical vessel in the galaxy. Navigation Officer Lyra's therapeutic maneuvers became part of standard training for hospital ship pilots, though with several pages of warning labels attached. Perhaps most significantly, the incident led to a complete reassessment of humanity's Class II civilization status. As one council member put it, any species that can turn medical care into an effective defense system while technically maintaining their oath to do no harm clearly deserves a second look. The UNMS Mercy's crew continued their mission of providing medical care throughout the galaxy, though they did add a small note to their ship's registry. Attempted piracy will result in mandatory treatment. Side effects may include career change, existential crisis, and overwhelming medical debt. Echo kept the incident report framed in her main processing core, right next to what she called her collection of creative interpretations of the Hippocratic Oath. As she often reminded new crew members, sometimes the best preventative medicine is ensuring nobody needs treatment in the first place.